welcome to another broadcast of Comics Let's Talk. This is Kevin Gibbon. I review comic books and have columns on two sites, the Comics for Sinners website and the Comics Crusaders website. Check them out. Check out my reviews and check out my columns. If you like what you read, let me know in the comments section below. If you don't like it, let me know too. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. My comic book reviews for Comic Crusaders and Comics for Sinners. This week, we're going to look at the top 10 comic books you probably didn't know existed. At number 10, Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. One of the most expensive Saturday morning live-action series ever made. From Wikipedia, Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp had a 7-figure budget with location filming, props and costumes, and the laborious staging and training of the animals. The filmmakers made the most of the budget, staging multiple episodes with the same settings and wardrobe, occasionally reusing the more elaborate chase footage that sometimes included a Rolls-Royce. Two of the three producer-creators were Stan Burns and Mike Marmer, former writers for Get Smart.
Hi there, I'm Ed Simeon. Right now I have something groovy for you. Groovy.
How utterly fascinating.
What's your theory, Darwin?
Calling Lancelot Link. Come in, Link.
I'm Stan Burns, and I created Lancelot Link.
I'm Mike Marmer, and I created Lancelot Link.
Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. Stands for justice, he has no fear. He's the agent to call when trouble is near. Lance Link, you gotta come through. Everybody at Agent is counting on you.
Both resigned from their jobs as head writers on the Carol Burnett Show to work on Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. According to The Believer, to make the dialogue fit the chimp's lip action, Burns and Marmer went to ridiculous lengths. Voiceovers were ad-libbed on the set, giving birth to beautifully absurd moments of the chimps breaking into songs at the end of sentences or spontaneously reciting Mother Goose rhymes just so it would look right.
That's the late Ben Jolson, and that's the late Don Hinckley.
You have these pictures?
Stan Burns and Michael Marmer had a 25-year partnership writing comedy for all of TV's great comedians and classic shows. Ernie Kovacs, Steve Allen, the Smothers Brothers, Flip Wilson, Get Smart, and The Carol Burnett Show, where they won an Emmy Award in 1972 for their parody of Gone with the Wind. But their proudest TV moment, the peak of their brilliant careers, was the year 1970, when they created Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. Almost 30 years later, Stan and Michael reunited for the first time in years to remember what it was like to work with
Lance Link, Secret Chimp.
We came up with a chimp idea because James Bond was big, and we said, let's do chimps dress.
And we had done Get Smart, so they
do
were
a
kind
Get
of
Smart type
dumb.
thing.
It's my golf club phone. Now, who knows me on the 6th hole?
Your tennis racket is ringing.
Okay, I'll get it. Link here.
Using his special banana phone, Lance reported to Ape headquarters and Commander Darwin.
The main chimps belonged to A.P.E, the agency to prevent evil. The characters for A.P.E included Lancelot Link, played by Tongo, and voiced by Dayton Allen, imitating Humphrey Bogart. His surname is possibly a reference to the missing link. And then there's Mata Hari, played by Debbie, but voiced by Joan Gerber. Mata spoke in a high, whiny voice, reminiscent of the Jewish American princess caricature popular at that time. Her name was a takeoff on Mata Hari, like I needed to tell you that. And, of course, there's Commander Darwin, voiced again by Dayton Allen. He was named after Charles Darwin, who else? And he was always being asked about his theory on the show. Their arch nemesis was C.H.U.M.P, the criminal headquarters for the underworld's master plan. C.H.U.M.P's characters included Baron von Butcher, voiced by Barney Kopel, and modeled on Kopel's character of Siegfried in the television show Get Smart. Kopel is believed to have approached his voicings of the Baron as if Siegfried were the head of chaos. Then there's the Dragon Woman, voiced again by Joan Gerber. Her name was a takeoff on the Dragon Lady, a villainess in the Terry and the Pirates comic strip series. Creto was voiced by Barney Koppel. His name was basically a play on the word cretin, also a play on Kato, the Green Hornet's chauffeur and crime-fighting sidekick. And then we come to Wang Fu, also voiced by Koppel. His name was a play on Kung Fu. The Duchess, who was voiced by Joan Gerber. Then there's Ali Assassin, voiced and sung by Dayton Allen. His last name was meant to sound like assassin. We also come up to Dr. Strangemind, voiced by Dayton Allen, who was impersonating Bela Lugosi, and his name was inspired by Dr. Strangelove.
ABC bought the show, budgeted, which was very high. I think it was $1 million plus for a Saturday morning show. They bought it, and they never saw a chimp. We built about 20 sets, high up. There were a lot of things devised on this show that had never been done before. For one thing, it was shot in 16, but very high-tech 16 with special lighting because the chimps' faces were all dark, so we had to have special lighting to light them up.
How do you want your egg?
Would you make them sunny side up, please?
Okay, Lynn.
Yes. Please.
We had to teach them how to walk standing up. We had to teach them how to wear clothes because they would pull the clothes off.
And all the clothes were made to order.
And it was all custom made. We had fake shoes so that their feet could actually touch the ground. They were uncomfortable, except Debbie wore oversized shoes once in a while.
Top ape agents Mata Hari and Lance Link were playing their regular morning game of tennis.
Nice shot.
The all-chimp band Evolution Revolution, dressed in colorful hippie-style wigs and wardrobe, featuring Lancelot Link guitar and Mata Hari on tambourine, with Blackie as Bananas Marmoset on the drums. Sweetwater Gibbons, in fringed vest and granny glasses, was credited for playing Farfisa organ, although the organ usually pictured in the clips was a Vox Continental organ. In the episode The Evolution Revolution, it was established that the band's music was used to communicate coded messages for ape agents.
Frankian decided, so one day before we shot, to castrate all the males. Because what was going to happen is the females were going to come in season. Do you remember? And
This is X-rated now.
Yeah. And they castrated the male chimps, which incidentally did not slow them up one bit. Because every morning they would come out haired up and ready to either fight or have consensual sexual relations. Tonga, who was the lead chimp who played Lance Link, was the only one that wasn't doubled in any form. He remembered the vet, and his trainer Darryl said someday he's going to get that vet. They were leading them out of the pen, going back out of the stage, going back to their pens, when Tonga leaped over the other chimps, knocked the vet down, and bit a hole in his back.
He remembered.
He remembered him. ABC people had just gotten out of the limo, took one look at Tonga chewing the vet, got back in the limo. We never saw them again. Never saw them.
The number 9 comic book that you probably didn't know existed. The one and only Happy Days. That's right, Happy Days, which is an American television sitcom that aired first run from January 15, 1974 to September 24, 1984 on ABC with a total of 255 half-hour episodes spanning 11 seasons. It was created by Gary Marshall. The series presented an idealized vision of life in the mid-1950s to mid-1960s Midwestern United States and starred Ron Howard as teenager Richie Cunningham, Henry Winkler as his friend Arthur Fonzarelli, and Tom Bosley and Marion Ross as Richie's parents, Howard and Marion Cunningham. Happy Days became one of the biggest hits in television history and heavily influenced the television style of its time. The series began as an unsold pilot starring Howard, Ross, and Anson Williams, which aired in 1972 as a segment entitled Love and the Television Set, which was later retitled Love and the Happy Days for syndication. It was on ABC's anthology show Love American Style. Based on the pilot, director George Lucas cast Howard as the lead in his 1973 hit film American Graffiti, causing ABC to take a renewed interest in the pilot. The first 2 seasons of Happy Days focused on the experiences and dilemmas of Richie Cunningham.
I played Richie Cunningham, and I was the middle child in the family. I think the show began thinking it would focus primarily on the family and this middle boy. And it was inspired a bit by American Graffiti, but also a little bit by Summer of '42. Henry Winkler's character, Arthur Fonzarelli, the Fonz, exploded over the first couple of seasons. Eventually the focus of the show became really more about Fonzie. The first season that the show was on, it was on for half a year. It came on mid-season, and it performed really well, and it was a single camera show. The second season, we fell in the ratings. They almost canceled us. But Henry Winkler just exploded. But the show did shift, and I continued to have great parts. And the fantastic thing was, it was a wonderful ensemble. We always treated it as an ensemble. Henry Winkler and I were kind of like brothers, and he was sort of like a big brother to me in a lot of ways. We worked well together, and we became a huge hit.
Following these changes, Happy Days became the #1 program in television in 1976 through 1977. Fonzie became one of the most merchandised characters of the 70s, and Henry Winkler became a major star.
I got called on my birthday. Tom Miller called me and said, "Would you like to play the character?" And I said, "If you let me show the emotional side to him, it would be my pleasure." You know, a tough guy. I made a deal with myself that I would never comb my hair. I would never chew gum. I would never wear a Garrison belt, you know, those big thick belts they wore in the 50s with the buckle off to the side. I'd never have cigarettes in my sleeve, because every actor who ever played this character did that. Second day on the set, they said, "Go comb your hair." I said, "No, I can't do that," because I made a promise to myself that I'm not going to do that. He said, "It's written here. The producer said you're going to do it, you're going to do it." I went, "Oh. Okay, now I got to be true to myself, but I can't be disrespectful." So I walked to the mirror, took out my comb. Hey, I don't have to, because it's perfect. And that's how that moment came to be. I was being true to myself, but I had to do what was written, and that became the, you know, the kind of like seminal moment of the character.
The series also spawned a number of spin-offs, including the hit shows Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy. The animated series The Fonz and the Happy Days Gang ran from 1980 to 1982. This is from Atomic Avenue. The Happy Days comic book was just another product issued in time to capitalize on the overwhelming success of the popular TV series that initially starred Ron Howard, who was soon eclipsed by Henry Winkler and his immensely popular Fonz character. Howard, as Richie Cunningham, played an Archie-like everyman who had various adventures with his friends and family in a 1950s setting. As time went on, the authenticity vanished, but the laughs continued until, finally, Happy Days was outranked by the A-Team. If you're interested in more of the Happy Days comic books, check out Linkara's show From Atop the Fourth Wall. That channel reviews the second issue of the comic book for anyone interested. The #8 comic book you probably didn't know existed, Welcome Back, Kotter. Yes, another Gold Key adaptation, right? After all, Gold Key did Happy Days and other sitcoms like My Favorite Martian. So they must have done this, right? No. Actually, would you believe that DC did this comic book? Also, for those not as old as me, let's talk TV. Again, we used Wikipedia unless otherwise noted as our source material. The show stars stand-up comedian and actor Gabe Kaplan as the title character, Gabe Kotter, a wisecracking teacher who returns to his alma mater, James Buchanan High School in Brooklyn, New York. The school's principal is referred to but rarely seen on screen. The rigid vice principal, Michael Woodman, played by John Sylvester White, dismisses the Sweathogs as witless hoodlums and only expects Kotter to contain them until they drop out or are otherwise banished. As a former remedial student and a founding member of the original class of Sweathogs, Kotter befriends the current Sweathogs and stimulates their potential. A pupil-teacher rapport is formed, and the students often visit Kotter's Bensonhurst apartment, sometimes via the fire escape window, much to the chagrin of his wife, Julia. played by Marcia Strassman. The fictional James Buchanan High School is based on the Brooklyn High School that Kaplan attended in real life, New Utrecht High School, which is also shown in the opening credits. Many of the show's characters were also based on people Kaplan knew during his teen years as a remedial student, several of whom are described in one of Kaplan's stand-up comic routines entitled Holes and Mellow Rolls. And of course, that was a little too graphic for 1970s TV, so the catchphrase became the ever-popular, up your nose with a rubber hose. Let's hear Gabe Kaplan now as he discusses the inspirations for his Sweathogs. Vinnie Barbarino was inspired by Eddie Lacrri and Ray Barbarino. Freddie Boom Boom Washington was inspired by Freddie Ferdy Payton.
Now, the best kid at ranking in the school was a kid named Eddie Lacrri. Had his own group that followed him everywhere. They had their own tables in the lunchroom. Only tables that had a waiter, you know. We had our choice of milk or orange drink. Eddie Lacrri had a wine list. Best kid next to him was a kid that's about a year older, a black kid named Freddie Payton. Freddie, you had to call Freddie Payton Ferdy, because you called him Freddie, he really got off and he would rank you, you know. They had it out one day. Freddie Payton had some good Italian lines. Hey, Lacrri, you know why Italians don't have pimples? Because they slide off.
Juan Epstein was partially inspired by Epstein the animal.
Epstein was an animal. He was voted most likely to take a life. Epstein talked like this. I don't remember when he didn't talk like this. I think when he was born, he talked like this. Said to the doctor, slap me again, I'll break your head.
However, Arnold Horshack was unchanged.
I sat back with the same kid for 7 years in a row. His name was Arnold Horshack. Talked out of shy of his mouth like this. Hello, I'm Arnold Horshack. Horshack was not too cool. If it was 5 minutes to 3 and the teacher forgot to give homework, he would remind her. Miss Montgomery, aren't you going to give us any homework? Oh, that's right. For tomorrow, memorize the Encyclopedia Britannica.
And now we come to the number 7 comic book that you probably didn't know existed. Conga. Conga is a 1961 British-American international co-production science fiction horror film directed by John Lamont and starring Michael Gough, Margot Johns, and Austin Trevor. And now let's hear Paul Stockman tell us how he became Conga.
This is Paul Stockman speaking. How I came to get the part of Conga, my agent told me there was an American producer looking for a 6-foot actor. And would I go to Max Rehearsal Rooms, Leicester Square, London? So I toddled along. I walked into a room and there's 26-foot tall blokes. I thought, oh dear, it's a lineup. Anyway, the producer, Herman Cohen, came in carrying a big cardboard box. He said, the actor I need must be exactly 6 foot. So if you're 6'1" or 5'11", thank you for coming, but you won't do. So everybody left except 3, 2 other guys and myself. And the producer then opened the cardboard box and took out the gorilla headpiece. He said, now I'd like all 3 of you to try this on, because the guy who gets the part will have to wear this 6 to 8 hours a day, so see how you feel with it. So we each put the gorilla head on. The other 2 had blue eyes, and I got brown eyes. And we all knew a gorilla has brown eyes. So that was how I got the part.
Comic book legend Steve Ditko chronicled the Conga saga for Charlton Comics. The genius artist Steve Ditko is a towering monster of awesomeness, and so is the character he chronicled. Conga. If you love King Kong, and who doesn't, you'll love Conga. Conga battles dinosaurs, mole men, undersea monsters, creatures from beyond space, and the evilest threat of all, the human race. The complete Ditko Conga is available on Amazon, a whopping 302 pages of giant purple ape comics, including 8 pulse-pounding covers, all rendered during the height of Ditko's prowess, concurrent with his Spider-Man and Doctor Strange creative explosions. Scripts are by fan-favorite writer Joe Gill. There's an introduction by Eisner Award-winning Craig Yo with fascinating insight into the comics and the monster movie that inspired them. Every page is lovingly restored, and the book is a large format hardcover to showcase the monstrous Ditko art. The number 6 comic book that you probably didn't know exists is Man from Atlantis, an American science fiction television series that ran for 13 episodes on the NBC network during the 1977 through 78 season, following 4 television films that had aired earlier in 77. Ratings success by these movies led to the commissioning of a weekly series for the 77 through 78 season. In 1978, Marvel Comics published 7 issues of a Man from Atlantis comic book written by Bill Mantlo with art by Frank Robbins and Frank Springer. In 1978, at the same time as Marvel Look in the UK began publishing a comic strip, this one was drawn by Mike Noble and later John Cooper for one story. It was short-lived, lasting less than a year before being replaced with Enid Blyton's Famous 5. The number 5 comic book that you probably didn't know existed, and it's probably the most unbelievable entry on our list. Yes, David Cassidy had his own comic book. Now, certain sitcoms were adapted to comic book format. We've looked at a couple on this show, and we can understand a Partridge Family comic book, which does exist thanks to Carlton Comics. But David Cassidy? Not to undermine the talent of the man who would be Keith Partridge, a great singer and a good actor, but his own comic book? Yes, Virginia, there is a David Cassidy comic book adaptation. Let's look at Cassidy's life. He was born at Flower Fifth Avenue Hospital in New York City, the son of singer and actor Jack Cassidy and actress Evelyn Ward. In 1956, he found out from neighbors' children that his parents had been divorced for over 2 years and had not told him. Whoa, talk about family secrets. In 1956, Cassidy's father married singer and actress Shirley Jones. They had 3 children, David's half-brothers Sean, Patrick, and Ryan. Once I Think I Love You became a hit, Cassidy began work on solo albums as well. Though he wanted to become a respected rock musician along the lines of Mick Jagger, his channel to stardom launched him into the ranks of Teen Idol, a brand he loathed until much later in life, when he managed to come to terms with his bubblegum pop beginnings. His comic book ran for 14 issues beginning in 1972. In 1990, Cassidy would play the villain in another comic book-related TV series, The Flash, as Sam Scudder, Mirror Master. The number 4 comic book that you probably didn't know existed was published not just by one company, but by 2 comic book companies, and it is The Wild Wild West, which is an American weird Western television series that ran on the CBS television network for 4 seasons and 104 episodes from September 17th, 1965 to April 4th, 1969. 2 television movies were made with the original cast in 1979 and 1980, and the series was adapted for a motion picture in 1999 with Will Smith and Kevin Kline. The less said about that motion picture, the better. Trust me. If you haven't seen it, you're not missing anything. Check it out if you want to. But it really isn't that good. The television series was developed at a time when television westerns were losing ground to the spy genre, and the show was conceived by its creator, Michael Garrison, as a James Bond on horseback. Set during the administration of President Ulysses S. Grant, the series followed Secret Service agents James West, played by Robert Conrad, and Artemis Gordon, played by Ross Martin, as they solved crimes, protected the president, and foiled the plans of megalomaniacal villains to take over all or part of the United States. Despite high ratings, the series was canceled near the end of its 4th season as a concession to Congress over television violence. From 1966 until the show's cancellation in 1969, the scribes with the Golden Key gave us 7 issues of a Wild Wild West comic book. In 1990, Millennium Publications produced a 4-part comic book series, The Night of the Iron Tyrants, scripted by Mark Ellis with art by Darryl Banks. A sequel to the TV series, it involved Dr. Lovelace in a conspiracy to assassinate President Grant and the President of Brazil and put the Knights of the Golden Circle into power. The characters of Voltaire and Antoinette were prominent here, despite their respective early departures from Dr. Lovelace's side in the original program. The number 3 comic book that you probably didn't know existed. And it's a woozy. That's right. The Kiddie Show Saved by the Bell. And of course, that is an American television sitcom that aired on NBC from 1989 to 1993. A reboot of the Disney Channel series Good Morning, Miss Bliss, the show follows a group of high school friends and their principal, primarily focusing on lighthearted comedic situations. The series starred Mark Paul Gosselaar, Dustin Diamond, Lark Voorhees, Dennis Hoskins, Tiffany Amber Thiessen, Elizabeth Berkley, and Mario Lopez. In recent years, Saved by the Bell has been classified as educational and informational. The show was named one of the 20 best shows of all time by AOL TV. In 1992, Harvey Comics published a short-lived Saved by the Bell comic series. 7 issues were released, including a Christmas and a summer special. The comic was generally not well received, with comic book critic Matt D. Wilson saying its character likenesses for the show's stars were rough at best. In 2014, Lion Forge Comics announced that its new all-ages imprint, Roar Comics, would publish a new Saved by the Bell comic. Set initially during the gang's freshman year of high school, the comic serves as a modern update to the classic series. It premiered in March 2014 alongside Roar's adaptation of Punky Brewster. If you're interested in more on this comic, Channel Skunk Ape discusses comic book tropes of Saved by the Bell in episode 16 of his series. It's also reviewed by Neil McNeil's channel and Joe's Nostalgia Overload on BKM TV Studios. Check it out. The number 2 comic book that you probably didn't know existed is My Little Margie, which was an American sitcom starring Gail Storm and Charles Farrell that alternated between CBS and NBC from 1952 to 1955. The series was created by Frank Fox and produced in Los Angeles, California at Hal Roach Studios by Hal Roach Jr. and Roland D. Reed. My Little Margie premiered on CBS as the first summer replacement for I Love Lucy on June 16, 1952, under the sponsorship of Philip Morris Cigarettes. Set in New York City, the series stars Gail Storm as 21-year-old Margie Albright and former silent film star Charles Farrell as her widowed father.
First, I wouldn't say that she's like I am, although you do, you know, you've got the physical thing that you put into it. She had a mind that was so inventive and so creative, and such a will to make everything right. No matter what it was, she was going to fix it. You know, it's sort of whether it needed fixing or not, I think. And so that was what she was like, and she was very strong.
Well, I was only going to suggest that you pose for the Distinguished Gentleman series.
All right, I will. I mean, all right, I will.
Now, if you'll just come over here with me, please. This won't take very long. If you'll sit at the table, Mr. And look as if you're watching the floor show, I'll make the shot fast.
How's this?
It's sickening.
Oh, you're just jealous.
Now, take your pose. Hold it, please. Thank you. I'd like to get a couple more.
Oh, sure. Gee, I wish Margie could see me now.
I'd like to get this second one a little more related to the backing. Would you mind moving the table back, please?
Oh, not at all.
Now, there, that's good. Now, if you'll sit down again, please. Hold it. That's fine. Now, one standing up, if you don't mind, sir.
Oh, I don't mind at all. I'm getting a real boot out of this.
All right, this is a tape. There, that does it. Thank you, sir. I'd like to have the model show you those Duval dresses, but I don't know where she could have gone.
Oh, don't worry about it. We'll drop in again.
Thanks again for posing, Mr.
Glad to oblige. Just send me copies of the prints.
I will. Now, what in the world could have happened to that girl?
She almost lost a hand. That's what happened.
They share an apartment at the Carlton Arms Hotel. Vern Albright is the vice president of the investment firm of Honeywell and Todd. When Margie realizes she has blundered or gotten into trouble, she makes an odd trilling sound. My Little Margie comics were produced by Carlton Comics and lasted 10 years, giving us 54 issues between 1954 and 1964. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the #1 comic book that you probably didn't know existed, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. That's right. Cheesy 1964 American sci-fi film, directed by Nicholas Webster, produced and written by Paul L. Jacobson, based on a story by Glenville Merritt. The film stars John Call as Santa Claus and features an 8-year-old Pia Zadora as one of the Martian children. Jamie Farr from MASH is also present in the film. The film also marks the first documented appearance of Mrs. Claus in a motion picture. What a downer that is, isn't it? I mean, the first appearance of a major character in American mythology has to be in this film. Doris Rich played the role, and it came 3 weeks before the television special Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which also featured the character. And I think that would have been a better launching point for Mrs. Claus than Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. But this is the way the cookie crumbled. The film regularly appears on the lists of the worst films ever made. The film took on newfound fame in the 1990s after being featured on an episode of the comedy series Mystery Science Theater 3000. The story involves the people of Mars, including Momar, Mom Martian, and Kimar, King Martian. They are worried that their children, Gurmar, Girl Martian, and Bomar, Boy Martian, are watching too much Earth television, most notably station KID, yes, Kid TV's interview with Santa Claus in his workshop at the North Pole. Consulting the ancient 800-year-old Martian sage C.H.U.M.P, a Yiddish word meaning genius, they are advised that the children of Mars are growing distracted due to the society's overly rigid structure. From infancy, all their education is fed into their brains through machines, and they are not allowed individuality or freedom of thought. If you're interested, the movie was reviewed by the Minty Comedic Arts channel, and the comic book was reviewed by Linkara on Atop the Fourth Wall. And that was our look at the top 10 comic books that you probably never heard of, didn't know existed. If you think of any of the comic books that you know of that people really don't know existed, please list it in the comments section below. If you've heard of some of these comic books, please list those in the comments section below. I also have my own franchise now. It's Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter. The first novel was Last Rites, The Return of Sebastian Vasilis. It has been adapted into comic book format and can be found on Indie Planet along with all the other Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter comic books. Check out the Facebook page, Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter. Also, Last Rites, The Return of Sebastian Vasilis. If you like what you see and want to stay up to date, just click like on both pages. There are many other comic books available on Indie Planet and Drive-Thru Comic Books of the Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter franchise. The latest comic book is Dracula Rising. We're on issue 2. Issue 1 was drawn by Dennis Magnet, who since had to move on to other projects. So my new artist is Rodolfo Ezequiel. Going to show you some panels from his artwork right now. And for Comics Let's Talk, this is Kevin Given saying, see you next time, and keep reading those comics.
Lancelot, Link, and the Evolution Revolution!